what we are not. All the time, quite often, I'm always faced with the question about Christianity and what does it mean to be a Christian. And I try to explain it. And I think sometimes it may be easier to explain if we tell people what we're not. Because I think it has much more power if we tell them what we are not. I mean, it's one thing to say, here's what we are. We love each other. We want to reach out. We want to do positive things. We want to help those who are in need. And people kind of go, yeah. And I think there's a little bit more to it. And I think you could probably get people's attention if you show them or tell them what you aren't instead. I mean, let's face it. If you go up to somebody and say, well, what's it mean to be a Christian? You know, well, I'm a nice guy. Okay. Or I could say, I can tell you what I'm not. I'm not a jerk. I'm not self-serving. I'm not all about me. I'm more interested in about you, and turn that table. Suddenly, I think it has a little bit more oomph to it. It's not about what I am. It's about what I'm not. It's about what God took out of me. I can tell people about what God put in me, and it's wonderful, and I don't want to take anything away from that. But I think a lot of times we need to explain to people what we're not. Because we have to answer to the world quite often. When Christians do things that they shouldn't, they want to know, oh, is that what being a Christian is? I'd rather point and go, no, that's what not being a Christian is. Let me tell you about the things that I am not. I am not about myself. I am not about who I am, but who you are and how important you are to me and how important you are to God. Throughout the Bible warns us of being careful about what we get into, who we associate with, because it speaks about who we are. But it also, when we separate ourselves from those things, it shows who we aren't. Do we run with the crowd that's crazy and parties? Well, no, I'm not that. Oh, you're not one of those. No, I don't belong to that type of group. Are you arrogant? No, I'm not. Or at least I pray that I'm not. Are you always filled with anger? Gosh, I hope not. No, that's what I don't want. See, it helps us when we talk about what we're not to be self-examination, to look and say, this is what I don't want to be. I tell you what, today at home, I did everything and acted in every way that I wasn't supposed to. And it just kind of punctuated to me this message this morning about that's what you're not supposed to be. I misbehaved. I said things and hurt someone's feelings. And all I can do is apologize for that, but I can't take back those words. And I thought to myself, that's not what I'm supposed to be. That's not who I'm supposed to be. See, we have to focus on what we're not supposed to be. Because then it'll make us work at not being that. God warned us and gives us and tells us, and even back in Exodus, when the Israelites were delivered from bondage in Egypt, he said in Exodus 34:12, he said, watch yourself, that you make no covenant with the inhabitants of the land to which you are going, or it will become a snare in your midst. He's saying, be careful what you're associating with. Be careful what you get into. Be careful what you're doing, because it can drag you down. It says it'll become a snare in your midst. And the midst meaning the condition of being surrounded. That's what midst means. Don't surround yourself with the wrong things. Don't surround yourself in an element you're not supposed to be in. Know who you're not supposed to be so you can separate yourself from that. He said, look, I've delivered you out of Egypt, out of bondage. You're not a slave to sin anymore. I made an agreement with you. You don't belong to the world. Don't associate and get yourself caught up in the things of the world because it'll drag you away from me. That's why we have to have an awareness of what we're not supposed to be. That's why today's message is what we are not. So we know. You know, we tell our children, you know better. Why did you do that? You know better. You know you're not supposed to do that. And God tells us as his children, why did you do that? You know you're not supposed to do that. You know better. And isn't it funny how God turns that parental role around on us? We're supposed to be examples to our children, and then we get caught up doing the things we tell them not to do. Don't hit Bobby, and don't call him names. And then we're gathering together a bunch of people. Oh, did you see what she was wearing and how she acted? We start talking about people and tearing them down, and we're telling our kids not to do that. We're telling our kids, you go to school, get along with everybody. We get along, we get together, and sometimes we start speaking about somebody. And we say things about people. We're not supposed to do that unless it's uplifting. We have to catch ourselves in our house sometimes because we have so much going on. We have so many people in and out. And sometimes we have to stop and go, wait a minute, what are we doing? You know, our house for the longest time was filled with so much negativity. And it's funny because people would point out how negative it is. This house is so negative. And let me tell you about this house and its negativity. And what you're doing the same thing. You're bringing that in. Not only are you reminding us of the negativity, but you're adding to it. And I'm going, you can't conquer the negativity if you don't bring something positive. So there were things that we were not supposed to be doing, and we were. And you have to hold yourself in check. You know, and I'll tell you what, and I don't want to step on Bill here, but Bill, being a new Christian, it's important that he knows what he's not supposed to do. We can sit here and tell Bill what he's supposed to do, but isn't it easier to show him how he's not supposed to behave by acting in the proper way? You know, I was glad to see us gathering together, and I heard a lot of positive things about Sunday, us gathering together. And Charlie saying, you know, he brought his, I think it was his son-in-law, and he says, oh, he loved it. He got such a positive, you know, surrounded by all these people. The people were so nice and loving to him and stuff. But I will tell you, it was wonderful, all that positive stuff. But there were some things that I saw and said to myself, that's not how we're supposed to behave. And it's hard. The last thing any of us need to hear from somebody is, you're not supposed to behave like that. But see, we are the ones who keep each other in check. It's not for the world to go, oh, bad Charlotte, you call that Christianity? Well, I don't call that Christianity. Because they don't know. So it is up to us to hold one another in check and say, look, and do it in a loving way. Take them outside. You know, that's not how we are. I wish somebody would do that with some of these churches that are out there that are doing the wrong things and giving us, as Christians, bad names. If somebody would just go, that's what you're not supposed to do. See, we have to have that awareness. God said, hey, watch out. Don't get caught up in that stuff. It'll drag you down. He has a whole long list about being slanderers, gossipers, those filled with jealousy, conceit, and being arrogant. He goes down this whole list. This is the things he's saying you're not supposed to be. See, when I called you to me, he says, I am asking you to not behave in this way. In Deuteronomy, the Dude book, in chapter 6, verse 12, we're told, then watch yourself, that you do not forget the Lord who brought you from the land of Egypt. This is Israel, speaking to Israel, out of the house of slavery. He says, remember where you were. Remember what you were rescued from. You don't want to go back to that. So be careful how you behave. And it's for new Christians, it's even more probably out there even more, because as soon as you make a pronouncement, Bill, that I'm born again or I'm saved, and I'm saying you because some of the others aren't here, but I will tell you it's the same that happened with me. As soon as you make a statement that I received Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior, let's watch Bill. I don't believe it. I want to see what Bill's doing. I'm going to watch every move that Bill makes, every step he takes. He says he's a Christian now. Well, we'll find out. And that's exactly what happens by those who don't know. But I would tell you this, other Christians will watch you the same way too. There are Christians out there who have a hard time. And when I was baptized, there were people who said I was being baptized just so I can get married in the church. And these are from Christians. And I'm going, thank you for rejoicing with me. Well, these are from Christians. Christians who behaved the wrong way. Who weren't following and being aware of what they were not supposed to be doing. They were not supposed to be sitting on judgment on my decision to be saved. That's when I'll tell you what, when you're a new Christian, and suddenly, all right, these are the people I'm supposed to surround myself with, and they're going, yeah, you only get baptized, so you can get married in the church. What kind of club did I just join here? What kind of group did I get myself into? You know, I have a whole bunch of friends who aren't Christians who don't treat me and talk about me like that. Well, wait a minute. And when you're a new Christian, you don't get it. You're going to go, wait a minute. Is it okay for me to be like this? No, it's not. That's why we have to have an awareness of what we're not supposed to be, so that we're behaving the way we're supposed to. And we're being what God calls us to be. And he reminds Israel. Now, we all know the history of Israel. Yeah, they were told what they weren't supposed to do. And they followed that for a while. And then they didn't. I don't know about you, but it speaks to my Christian walk. When I was a first-born Christian, the first time I was baptized, I'm thinking, woohoo, yeah, I'm saved, hallelujah. I had no idea what I was doing. Nobody really told me what I was supposed to do or what I was not supposed to do. It was kind of inferred that somehow I would know. Well, you have to be into God's Word. But you also have to be around people who are behaving properly. That's why I said Sunday at our Sunday get-together was glorious. Like I said, there was one or two things, but it wasn't huge where everybody was surrounded. And I had to speak to an individual about their behavior. And said that's not what a Christian is, or how a Christian behaves. But that's okay. We're going to make mistakes. It's how those mistakes are addressed. See, God's not going to knock you down and beat you over the head for every little misstep. That's why he's a forgiving God. Him being a forgiving God shows us exactly what we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be forgiving. He's a tolerant God. We're supposed to show that tolerance. He's a loving God. We're supposed to show that love. We're God's children. We're supposed to emulate the parent, the father. That's what we're supposed to do. We're not supposed to slander or talk poorly about one another. We're not supposed to steal. We know that one. You can go down to the Ten Commandments, suddenly, someone who's a newer Christian will even tell you, I know I'm not supposed to kill anybody, and I'm not supposed to steal from them, and I know that I'm not supposed to covet what they have. I know those things. But what about my life that I'm doing am I not supposed to do? See, that's where the change comes. When God calls us to die to ourselves, he said, I need you to die to these things that you're not supposed to be doing. Those are the hard things. Those are our habits. Those are our patterns. Those are the things that we think are enjoyable or fun. And that's why sometimes we get the perception, well, if God takes all those things away, I'm going to be a boring person and I'm not going to be any fun and no one's going to want to be around me, but that's not true. the Proverbs, chapter 4, verse 26, it tells us, watch the path of your feet, and all your ways will be established. It says, watch where you're stepping. Watch what you're doing. Be aware. See, what this comes down to is having an awareness. Having our eyes open to what it is we're doing, how we're behaving, the things we're saying, the actions we show. Having that self-awareness. And we don't catch yourself. Today I caught myself after the damage had been done and had to apologize for my actions. But then I'm thinking to myself, why did I do that? All right, I got to be careful next time to not do that. I yelled at Charlotte about something that I shouldn't have. And I didn't treat her very nice. I mean, I'll tell you exactly that. And it made me feel really bad that I did that. And of course, then everybody else in the house is hearing me, what I'm saying. And people came to me going, did you apologize to her? Did you apologize? I'm like, look, it's between me and her. It's my actions. But then I thought about it and said, you know what? It obviously flowed out on others, and that's why we have to have an awareness of what we're doing. These kids sitting here, brand new Christians, came to know Christ, have no idea that they're still kids. How are they supposed to behave? Well, who are they going to watch? They're going to watch you. They're going to watch you, and they're going to watch me, and they're going to watch you, and you, and you, and you. Who are they going to be around here every Sunday? This is Christianity to them. This is what walking with God is about. It's about, hey, I'm going to watch Dan and see what Dan does, so that and I'll do what Dan does. I'm going to follow Dave, and I'm going to look at the pastor. I'm going to look Miss Lucy. Well, however Miss Lucy talks, I'm going to listen to what she says so that I know what I'm supposed to do and how I'm supposed to behave. And see, that's the thing we have to have an awareness of. If we're caught in gossiping, you think those children aren't going to get into the habit of gossiping? If we're talking poorly about somebody, you think they're going to think it's okay to talk poorly about somebody? If we're behaving in the wrong way, they're going to think it's okay. So the responsibility really falls on us to have an awareness of what we're not supposed to be, so that they know what to be. And I believe God didn't do all this in our church and create this awareness and have all these people coming to the Lord and getting baptized just so we could be a bad example to them. I think he did it in this church because he knows the hearts of the people here. He knows that I don't want to mistreat Charlotte. I don't want to mistreat anybody here, and I don't want to talk poorly about it. I try to separate myself from those things that I know aren't of God. And I do hold others accountable. I will hold all of you accountable, just as you should hold me accountable. If you're behaving the wrong way, I know that what you're doing is not going to affect just you. It's going to affect others. So I will step out and say, hey. But I'll do it in a loving way. I won't hit you with a holy stick. I won't go up to you and go, whack. What are you doing? Get it together. Watch what you're doing. In Proverbs 15, it reads, let me get to there. Proverbs 15, verse 3 says, the eyes of the Lord are in every place, watching the evil and the good. See, God knows what you're doing. See, that's one thing I always said before, and I'll say this again, that's my favorite thing. You can't play hide and seek with God. He wins every time. You can tell him, God, count to a bazillion, and I'm going to hide, figuring he'll have enough time, and as soon as he opens his eyes, he goes, I found you. Because he sees everything you do. He says, I see the good that you do, and I see the evil that you do. You can't hide anything from me. His eyes see everything. So a lot of times we think that, I can get away with this one thing because, look, there's no one from churches here. I can get away with doing this. God's going, saw you. Found you. Got you. See, it's the one place, the one thing that we can't do. We can't hide. And everything that we do, our actions are followed. If someone that's in your church doesn't see you, somebody else is going to see you. And one thing for sure is God will see you. He knows your heart. He knows what you're doing. And I've dealt with people who said to me, I've changed. Oh, I've changed. And when they were around me, they were changed. But as soon as they left my presence, they went right back to doing the things. Again, they put up this big facade for a little while. And they thought somehow, because I didn't know, it was all right. Will didn't know. Pastor Will doesn't know that. God did. And you know, the thing is when you start being deceitful to others, you'll find yourself falling into other things. When you start hiding or masking what's really going on, it's going to be found out. So God says, you know what you're not supposed to do. And if you know you're not supposed to do that, or you're not supposed to be that, don't do that. You're not supposed to yell at somebody. Okay? Then don't do that. It's easy to go, I'm supposed to be really nice to you. No, I'm not supposed to yell at you. It's all in how you present it. And I think sometimes when you present it in a stronger way, it gets people's attention. That's why I said we could tell people who we are as Christians, and we could say that, but I think it's easier sometimes to really prove a point is to show them what we're not. Show them how we are different from the world. Because you know what? There's nice people in the world, too. There are kind people in the world, too. There are generous people in the world, too. The difference is there are still things that they do that we as Christians do not. See, they have a belief that being nice or generous out there is going to get them to heaven, that somehow they're going to be rewarded. We know that's not the case. See, being a Christian encompasses a lot more than just being nice and being generous. It's about being that mentor. It's about being that spirit. It's about doing it every single day. It's about consistency. See, so you can be nice in the world one day, but you know darn well when you get to work in that corporate world and you're willing to step on that person that's below you to get there to a higher place. Well, look, now I got to a higher status, and you kind of want to rationalize by going, well, look, I stepped all over these people to get to a higher position. Well, now I can give more money to charities. Well, see, that's not what we are. I'm not going to walk on somebody else so I can help them. I'm going to depend on God and His provisions for these things. See, our lives are dependent upon God. He's in control and understanding where He puts us. And allowing ourselves to honor Him. See, the whole idea behind becoming a Christian is allowing God to change our lives and then giving honor to Him because of what He did. It's not about, I told you, the change in my life isn't about anything that I did. It has everything to do with what He did. And He did it to me, and He did it for me. And He did it out of love. So, how should I behave? In the same way. We're told to love one another and I'm to hold you in a higher regard than myself. See, that's not the way the world works. I think if you really want to punctuate who you are as a Christian, all you have to say is, it's not about me. I'll tell you what I'm not. I'm not about myself. I'm about you. How are you doing? How many of us ever had that conversation with somebody where you got to them and all they did was talk about themselves? And you walked away from the conversation going, wow. See, because I know somebody like this. I can go and talk to them about any problem, and somehow, whatever this is, it'll get turned into about them. And it'll be about them. And I could spend an hour with that person, walk away and go, it was all about them. I came to them to talk to them about, a couple that I know. And it turned out to be about them. And I walked away, I don't have anything else. I got nothing out of that except about that person. And it was okay. Except it's always that way. All right, I have compassion for this person. But when I go about something else, I'm not going about them. I'm going about something else. I don't need to be about them all the time. See, we get caught up sometimes and it's all about me. It's not. Being a Christian means, I'll tell you what it's not about. It's not about me. It's about you. And if you ever had a conversation with somebody when you walked up and go, hey, how you doing? And they said, well, I'm doing fine, but you know what? Tell me about what's going on with you. Isn't it nice when someone shows an interest in you? And you go, wow, that person really genuinely cared about me. So when you take the selfishness out of it, the fact that it's not about us, it's about others and how we treat others, it makes a difference. It defines who we are then as Christians, that we're more worried about somebody else. I don't think Jesus was going, oh, these nails are going to hurt. Or that beating and that flogging I'm going to take is, oh, man. No, he said, whatever it takes, because it's about you. I'm doing this for you. And if our hearts are the same, we can tell people, I'm a Christian. Let me tell you what I'm not. I'm not about me. I'm about doing whatever it takes to help you. Everybody in this church, God has reached out and touched in some way and done something for them. And God didn't say, he never once said, all right, now you have to be at church on Sunday. He didn't say, now you have to pray to me. He didn't say, now you have to love me. He didn't say, now you have to give me glory. He did it expecting nothing. But we gave it back to him because we recognized what he did. That's where, when I talk about something we're not supposed to be, we're not supposed to be selfish about us, God gets the glory. God gets the glory in all of it. And it's got one more verse for you. In 2 Peter. 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 17 says, you therefore, beloved, knowing this beforehand, and this is Peter talking to the church, and he's talking about loving one another and about how they're supposed to behave. He says, you therefore, beloved, knowing this beforehand, be on your guard, so that you are not carried away by the error of unprincipled men and fall from your own steadfastness. He says, stay steady in your beliefs. God says, you know what? Don't fall prey to what others are doing. You know the difference. If you don't, then read his word. Yeah, go ahead, get it. God says, don't fall into a trap. It has to do with, once again, putting yourself around people who are doing what they're supposed to be doing and behaving the way you're supposed to be behaving. I said, these children, I pray that we would be the right examples for them. Because it says if you fall into hanging out with a bunch of unprincipled men, guess what? Guess how you'll behave. It's about being a product of your environment, folks. That's really what it's about. If you want to act like a fool, hang around with a bunch of fools. If you want to walk away from God, hang around with ungodly people. You want to know how to have a relationship with God, watch the relationship that other people are having with God. You'll have your own. Don't emulate with somebody else's, but see what that relationship is. I think when Deva was touched, she saw the relationship. She saw how God was touching other lives. And she came to you because why? She knows about your relationship with God. So when she came to you, it was like, show me. And you could have went, what, you can't figure it out on your own? No. It was sharing that what you had. And that person wanted to emulate, seeing what you had, how you behaved, going, that's what I want. See, if we behave like we're not supposed to, nobody's going to want that. If you behave like you're supposed to and let God see the glory of God all over you, if he sees that skip in your step, that smile on your face because that day he did something wonderful for you, people are going to say, that's what I want. If you don't act like the world, people are not going to want to be a part of the world then. If you want to act like the world, then the world's going to go, then what's the difference? See, God said you're separate for a reason. Now, here's the things you're not supposed to do. And he says, I believe it's in 2 Corinthians. I want to go real quick. 2 Corinthians, he says, in chapter 12, verse 20, he says, for I am afraid that perhaps when I come I may find you to be not what I wish, and may be found and may be found by you to be not what you wish, that perhaps there will be strife, jealousy, angry tempers, disputes, slanders, gossip, arrogance, disturbances. Says, I am afraid that when I come again, my God may humiliate me before you, and I may mourn over many of those who have sinned in the past and not repented of the impurity, immorality, and sensuality which they have practiced. And what Paul is saying, he goes, I know what you're not supposed to be. I hope when I come, I don't find that to be the opposite. That slanderers and gossips and all those there are there. He said, I don't know, I pray that that's not what you guys are, that you're not doing that. You know what you're supposed to be. So all those things are the things we're not supposed to be. There's a list all the time in there. Don't be a jealous person. Don't bring strife. And strife is anytime you bring turmoil. We know, I think we all have someone in our lives that we know that we will state they love drama. You know somebody like that? You go, oh man, you know what? It's no wonder that person's life is in turmoil. They just love the drama. It's like one thing after another. There's always drama in their lives. I know someone like that too, and it drives me crazy. So why must you have strife? What is it that draws you to that? There's no joy in it. And it drives me crazy because this person's a Christian. I'm going, that's what you're not supposed to have. But you keep wanting that. And it's about self-attention, which is what you're not supposed to do. We don't want strife. Nobody wants grief in their life. It says angry tempers, disputes, gossip. Gossip. I think if there's one thing that drives me crazy as a pastor, and I'm not speaking to our church, I'm speaking to individual Christians that I know who can't help but gossip. It drives me crazy. Then why are you talking about that person? That person isn't here. That's the way the world is. The world keeps saying, you're me first. And I'm going to talk poorly about that person because I can put them down. It makes me look better. You know, gossip won't exist within a church if we all have the attitude of you first. I won't gossip about you, Stephanie, if I hold you in higher regard than me. How can I possibly do that? If I think more highly of you, how could I possibly say anything to tear you down then? If I think more highly of Ditto, I can't say anything to tear her down then. That's what eliminates gossip, is actually following what we're told, that hold someone in higher regard than yourself. If you do that, you can't talk bad about them then, can you? It's only when we elevate ourselves that we tear down others. So once again, what are we not supposed to be? Gossips. What are we not supposed to be? Slanderers. What are we not supposed to be? Jealous people. What are we not supposed to be? Someone who brings strife into a situation. So when people ask you who you are as a Christian, tell them, I'd rather tell you what I'm not. I'm not a jealous person. I'm not a slanderer. I'm not a gossip. I'm not a judgmental person. I have to tell people that a lot of times. I'm not going to sit in judgment on you. Why? Because there's such a habit of having other people within a church sit in judgment on them, that when they go, oh, you're a Christian, and they go, well, you know, I don't know about Christian. I go, look, I'm not sitting here and judging you. And I have to tell them, this is what I'm not. I'm not a person who will sit in judgment on you. You make those decisions. Those are your choices. So when somebody wants to know, tell them what you're not. See, because I can say what I'm not anymore. I'm not a drug user. I'm not addicted to alcohol. I'm not an abusive person who looks for trouble. I'm definitely not a murderer. There's a lot of things that I am no longer. And I think it speaks to God's glory more when you tell people what you are not. And that's God's word for today.